Lately I've had trouble getting to sleep. Not because of insomnia, mind you, but because I've been captivated. Captivated by a set of video games, one of which is Diddy Kong Racing for Nintendo 64. The other is also Diddy Kong Racing, but this time for Nintendo DS. One is a beloved kart racer by many, and the other an abomination. I've spent the past several weeks deep in thought about these two games and how they combine to form perhaps the most important piece of art in our history as a species. Diddy Kong Racing is, by itself, a story of a bunch of cartoon animals trying to save an island for the art of a race. The same is true of the DS remake, Diddy Kong Racing DS. But it is not the same game. 7 years passed between the release of the two games, and thus one would be forgiven for making the naive assumption that copyright issues, hardware differences, or any of that other gay shit would be to blame for this. But in reality, this remake is to function as a sort of continuation of the story. The two works thus function as an examination of how something as simple as the passage of time can change someone. One of the most notable differences between the two games is that two of the playable characters have been replaced. Banjo and Conker are no longer there. Conker's obvious. As he grew up, he became an alcoholic, and beyond the fact that drinking and driving is against the law, it can be inferred that the group just didn't feel comfortable around him anymore. I'm a little less certain about Banjo's absence, as there doesn't seem to be much of a reason for him to leave the group from a lore angle. Perhaps that's just how things turned out. I'm sure you've had friends that you just kind of drifted away from after all. On a semi-related note, there's also something of a feminist message here. The drunken, womanizing squirrel and the bear who makes his female bird companion do all the hard work for him are replaced by two strong, independent female chimps who play roughly exactly the same as their male counterparts. Truly, this will be the game that smashes the patriarchy, and to that, we must salute Diddy Kong Racing DS. But where the passage of time has brought an increasing mainstream interest in women's rights, there are certain things that still get harder as time passes for all of us. This is illustrated excellently through the tweaks to how players achieve a boost at the start of a race. In the original game, it was simple, a well-timed tap of the accelerator. But in the DS version, it changes to use some of the new features of the Nintendo DS. You need to either spin circles on the touchscreen, or blow violently into the awful microphone on the DS. Neither of which feels particularly intuitive compared to a simple timed button press. In fact, almost everything about the game is objectively worse than in the original game. But that's fine, because it's not supposed to feel good. It's supposed to feel like shit. Because that's what growing up is. Shit. But a benefit to growing up is hindsight. The older you are, the more time you've had to reflect on your actions, the more life experience you've had, and potentially the better a person you can become. The one character from the two games, Taj, represents a dark side to emotional maturity, the loss of innocence. In the original game, Taj was a goofy little elephant of possibly Indian heritage. It was never outright confirmed whether he was actually Indian or just liked the culture of India enough to pretend he was, but the DS version hints that the latter is the case, as he no longer has the accent. Instead, his new voice hints at something much more sinister than the simple act of cultural appropriation. Taj is a pedophile. You may not have noticed it before, and how could you? These things don't tend to be obvious to a naive child's mind, so they were never present in the original game, which intended to mirror the perspective of a child. But this new game takes off the rose-colored glasses, and you hear Taj for how he actually sounds. This is the voice of a grown adult. The only grown adult on the island. An island otherwise inhabited by children, and only children. I think that says it all, more or less. Diddy Kong Racing DS is often considered to be little more than a worse version of a classic game, but it's more than that. It's an extension of the original. It evolves the themes of the original in ways that tend to go unseen by those of lesser IQ than my own. These two games, combined, prove the worth of games as an art form.